America is a country people don't just visit, they imagine. It's a place people come to reinvent themselves. A nation connected by highways and rail lines, but also by ideas. The belief that effort matters, that movement is possible, that tomorrow doesn't have to look like yesterday. It is vast in a way few countries are. Natural defensible borders, oceans on both sides, mountains that divide the land, vast navigable waterways that provide huge logistical benefits, cities built on ambition, and towns built on memories and shared values. America exports more than products. It exports culture, music, movies, technology, ideas about freedom, opportunity, and individuality that traveled farther than its borders ever could. From all over the world, people came here. Different languages, different beliefs, different histories, and somehow, over time, found ways to live and work together. One by one, the immigrants came, usually in waves. Over time, they integrated into America, learned the language, adopted our philosophies, and added to the richness that was the USA. Welcome to Passports to the Past. Our mission is to understand countries not just as destinations, but as living stories shaped by what they've been through. Because history doesn't disappear. It lives in systems, in borders, in laws, in agreements, and in the arguments that form when those agreements break down. And to understand America as it is today, we have to return to the moment when the country stopped healing a wound and learned instead how to live with it, not to assign blame, but to understand what's at stake and why finding a way forward is worth it. All across America, you can find Italian festivals, German festivals, Native American celebrations, Mardi Gras, and just about every nationality or group is represented somewhere and celebrated. Not because they always agreed, but because they learned how to make agreements. America was not just founded as a place, but as an idea, that a person could become something new here, and that their future was not fixed by birth. The Constitution became the license for that idea, granting rights that were meant to protect freedom and opportunity. But anything of value is guarded, and from the beginning, those rights were not shared easily. They were defined for Americans, and for a long time, many people were told they did not qualify. Every new group arriving on these shores met resistance. Irish, Italian, Chinese, Mexican, each labeled outsiders before being slowly absorbed. For African Americans, especially those brought here as slaves, exclusion was not temporary, but foundational. The promise existed, but access to it was uneven. The Constitution was revered, but its protections were often withheld, defended by those who already held them. America's growth was shaped by this tension between an idea meant to be universal and a reality that struggled to accept who belonged. Over time, those guarded attitudes hardened into laws, customs, and social boundaries, shaping who could fully belong and who could not. What began as resistance slowly became structure, creating an environment where disagreement over rights, power, and identity could no longer be contained. That pressure eventually broke into open conflict. And while the Civil War ended as a war, the beliefs beneath it did not disappear. They were muted, regulated, and challenged. First through law, then through generations of struggle. America pushed forward, expanding rights, fighting for equality through the civil rights movement, and building the largest middle class the world had ever known. The pursuit of the American dream became the focus. Work hard, build a life, move forward. But progress did not erase the past. The deeper divisions remained, quieter than before, woven into institutions and memory, waiting for moments when agreement would once again give way to identity. It expanded education, infrastructure, innovation, and opportunity. It turned former battlefields into parks and disagreements into institutions. America was never a place without conflict. It was a place that believed conflict could be managed, and that compromise was not weakness, but necessity and even a strength. And yet today, something feels different. Disagreements no longer stay in the realm of policy. They've become personal. Identity has started to replace discussion, and compromise can feel like betrayal. When a country reaches a point where disagreement feels existential, It's rarely about the issue of the moment. It's usually about something older. America was designed to handle conflict. The founders expected disagreement, even fierce disagreement, and built a system meant to force negotiation, balance power, and prevent any one side from dominating the other. That system worked until it didn't. The question isn't whether America has disagreements today. It always has. The question is why those disagreements now feel so personal, why compromise feels like loss, and why so many Americans believe the country itself is slipping away from them. To understand that, we have to look past modern headlines and political language. We have to return to the moment when disagreements stopped being manageable and became a threat to identity. That moment wasn't recent, it was the Civil War. Not as a sequence of battles, but as the point where the American system was pushed beyond its limits and survived without fully healing. When Southern states declared they were leaving the Union, many Americans asked a simple question: why not let them go? For Abraham Lincoln, secession was not a peaceful solution. It was the end of the American system. If states could leave whenever they lost political power, then elections would no longer matter. The Constitution would no longer bind anyone who disagreed with it. Lincoln believed the United States was meant to be permanent, a system designed to survive disagreement, not dissolve because of it. Allowing secession would have made compromise impossible in the future. Every political dispute would carry the same threat: agree with us or we leave. And once that precedent was set, there would be no clear stopping point. States, regions, and factions could fracture endlessly. So the Civil War was not fought simply to stop separation. It was fought to decide whether a democratic system could survive when disagreement turned existential. The Union survived the war, but the beliefs that caused it did not disappear. When the Civil War ended, the violence stopped, but the country did not pause to heal. Americans were exhausted. The war had been catastrophic in scale, and most people wanted to put it behind them, not relive it. Laws changed. The nation redefined itself on paper, but attitudes do not disappear on command. Many Americans refused to accept the new reality being imposed on them. Some adapted, others resisted, and that resistance didn't vanish. It moved underground, reshaped into social customs, local power, and quiet resentment. At the same time, the country was moving forward. The frontier expanded. Railroads stretched across the continent. New technologies transformed how people worked, traveled, and lived. The Industrial Revolution created wealth and opportunity on a scale America had never seen. For millions of people, the future became more compelling than the past. Opportunity grew faster than resentment. Jobs were plentiful, wages rose, entire families were lifted into stability for the first time. America didn't heal its deepest divisions. It learned how to live around them. Then came 2 world wars. When they ended, much of the world lay damaged or destroyed. The United States did not. America became the factory, the financier, and the customer base for a rebuilding world. Its economy surged. Its influence expanded. Out of that moment came something rare in human history: the largest middle class the world had ever known. Home ownership, education, stability. A shared belief that life could keep getting better. Growth raised nearly all boats, and for a long time, that growth was enough to quiet older conflicts. The past wasn't gone, it was dormant, managed, regulated, pushed aside by progress, and for decades it worked. By the middle of the 20th century, the United States had reached a high point, economically, politically, and culturally. The country was getting things done. Over decades, Americans argued, protested, negotiated, and passed laws that reshaped everyday life for millions of people. Child labor was outlawed. The 40-hour work week became the standard. Workplace safety laws reduced injury and death. Minimum wages were established. Social Security gave seniors dignity and stability. Unemployment insurance softened economic shocks. Public education expanded access and opportunity. Labor protections strengthened bargaining power. Civil rights laws pushed the country closer to its founding ideals. These weren't regional victories. They weren't partisan trophies. They were shared foundations, benefits enjoyed by Americans regardless of whether their ancestors once stood on opposite sides of a battlefield. This was the era when belief in American exceptionalism was at its strongest. The United States helped set the rules for the global economy. It secured trade routes. It stabilized currencies. It became the standard others measured themselves against. When the Cold War ended, communism failed, not through invasion, but comparison. Nations across the world chose participation in a global economy over isolation. America led the way. But as the world industrialized, the economics of American life began to change. Manufacturing moved overseas, not because America declined, but because profit increased elsewhere. Global trade expanded. Productivity rose. America's Navy made that system possible, keeping shipping lanes open and trade secure. Goods moved faster and cheaper than ever before, but jobs did not always move back. Factories closed. Communities hollowed out. The difference between what workers once earned and what labor now cost was absorbed at the top. For the first time in generations, growth no longer lifted everyone. Two incomes became necessary where one had once been enough. Women gained independence and opportunity, a historic and necessary change. But the social structures that had supported families did not adapt quickly. Divorce rose. Economic stress increased. Poverty returned in places that had once felt secure. And when prosperity fades, old questions resurface. Who belongs? Who benefits? Who is to blame? When growth is strong, disagreement can be managed. When growth slows, identity fills the gap. The old divisions, long muted by opportunity, begin to speak again. Not because history returned, but because it was never fully resolved. For most of its history, America's institutions did what they were designed to do. Courts enforced rules, elections transferred power, laws created boundaries for disagreement. Even when Americans argued bitterly, those institutions acted as shock absorbers, keeping conflict political instead of personal. That stability mattered. It allowed the country to absorb enormous change without breaking apart. It allowed disagreement without collapse. But institutions do not erase conflict. They manage it. And when the pressures beneath them change, old dynamics can resurface, not as replicas of the past, but as echoes. Today's divisions no longer follow the same geographic lines. This is not North versus South. It is increasingly experienced as security versus precarity, opportunity versus instability, those who feel protected by the system and those who feel left behind by it. The language is different, the symbols have changed, but the underlying arguments are familiar. Who benefits from the economy? Who has influence over the rules? Whose voice carries weight and whose is ignored? In the 19th century, these questions collided over land, labor, and power. In the 21st, they collide over wages, debt, access, and identity. When economic stress rises, cultural divisions widen. When people feel unheard, disagreement hardens into identity. That is not a failure of any one institution. It is a signal that the conditions those institutions were built to manage are changing. America has faced moments like this before, not with the same actors, not with the same language, but with the same underlying tension between shared systems and competing visions of fairness. The Civil War was one expression of that tension. What we are experiencing now is another. The question is not whether history is repeating itself exactly. The question is whether the country will once again find a way to channel conflict into agreement or allow disagreement to become something harder to contain. America has never been perfect, but it has always been worth the effort. It is a country built not on sameness, but on the belief that disagreement could be managed, that people with different backgrounds, beliefs, and ambitions could still share a future. History shows us something important. When Americans focused on building opportunity, institutions, and shared prosperity, the country grew stronger, even with unresolved differences. And when growth slowed and fear replaced cooperation, old divisions found new voices. This story isn't about reliving the past. It's about recognizing its influence, because the forces shaping America today didn't appear overnight. They traveled here, quietly, through time. And if history teaches us anything, it's this. The country doesn't fall apart when people disagree. It struggles when they stop believing agreement is possible. In the next episode, we'll look at how America's institutions were built to manage conflict and why they're being tested in new ways today. This is Passports to the Past. We don't just visit places, we try to understand them.